if relationships are going haywire, or if it's just us.
I think, let's say, if things are changing, dynamics between the genders are changing in some way, and relationships are going haywire, or how much is it changing dynamics between men and women versus our own faults or issues.
If there's
our own issues.
Bigger change, is the question: is it a worldwide thing? Is it a bigger thing, or otherwise is it self-inflicted, or is it just a consequence of something else, sort of like it just happened to? Well, it's not getting better, I guess.
Well, I'm not a serial dater, so I don't use apps. Are we recording this? Are we starting?
Yeah.
Should we take from the top and say like what we're doing here? Let's have like an official bit of a start. We don't have to introduce ourselves like formally, but at least say like, hey, this is first episode, conversations with Dan and Dom.
Yes.
Oh, first step. All right, let's take it from the top. Take one. So, hey guys. So this is this experiment that my friend and I are conducting. We're calling it Conversations with Dan and Dom, and it's kind of a discussion. We've had a lot of discussions lately about different topics that we thought it would be interesting to share with others, and especially about relationships. There's a lot of stuff going on out there, as many of you might be aware of, and some difficulties with maybe finding partners and love and all of that. And I've certainly gone through a difficult few years with this, and it's been kind of a roller coaster ride. Several relationships that have gone badly, and it's upended my life in some ways, and I've learned a lot, and it has made me reflect deeply on a lot of things. It's profoundly affected my life, and kind of made me think about the state of affairs in the world and between the sexes. And I'm a heterosexual guy, so I'll limit my comments to that. I know there's many flavors out there, but I can't comment on all of them. I'll stick to what I know. It's been a tumultuous period. 3 relationships kind of have failed. It's been nuts, and it's had a very, very profound effect on my life. And I'm not a young guy. This kind of stuff normally happens when you're younger. And another lesson from that is that, hey, 1, love can strike at any time. 2, you're never too old to face this kind of stuff, to have your heart broken, or to break somebody else's heart, or to learn, I guess, and to fall in love and be devastated, or to try to turn your life or change it completely for somebody, and things like that. So teenage love can happen even in your 50s, it seems. But anyhow, there's a lot of stuff that I've learned and kind of experienced, and Dom here has some of his own experience and reflections,
and my own opinions,
and opinions,
my own theories about this.
And we've had a lot of conversations that we figured let's put out there, because I know a lot of you are dealing with this stuff. I know. I can see what's going on out there, and I get online, and social media and Insta and everywhere, basically friends. And so yeah, I felt it on my own skin, and I don't know, like are there some learnings maybe? Wanted to kind of share my experience and reflect on, you know, what's what. Is it me? Was it me? Was it other dynamics that are changing expectations? And we're gonna just chat it out, and then in future episodes, if there are any future episodes, there'll probably be some. We'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll talk about other things or continue this, but for now, let's kind of dive in. Dom, what do you got to say?
Well, I mean, it's the idea is to see if it resonates with people, right? What they have to say about this, if they have similar experiences, if they agree with one view or the other, or, you know, if this is a broader trend, and it can also, you know, if it ideally, you know, these conversations help the cause in a way, you know, for less disappointment, I guess, or less, I guess more happiness. You know, we're trying.
Well, at the very least,
more understanding, and yeah.
Well, maybe people can learn something from it, or maybe people can see like, hey, you know, I'm not the only person facing these things.
Yes.
And yeah, it'd be great to see your comments about what you think about this topic and maybe your experiences. And again, I know it's a very popular topic and everybody's got an opinion, but I mean, learn or share, or at least feel like a sense of, hey, you know, I'm not alone.
Yes.
In some of these things.
Yes. And maybe also to guide the viewers and listeners a little bit, this is a long form sort of conversation, and we're gonna sort of meander a little bit. So we have obviously a bit of a starting point, but we're not trying to stay focused on very narrow topics here, because this is a very complex.
We're gonna be all over the place.
This
is unscripted, so we don't know.
Correct. But this reflects also the complexity of this whole subject matter and of life in general. I feel like, you know, you don't live life sort of, you know, by the textbook, right? There's no textbook that you're gonna follow. It's complex, and the older you get, the more complexity. It's, you know, it's it's like writing code, right? I'm sure the longer the code you keep on writing or chapters, the more complex. You can't just erase everything that happened before.
Yeah.
But, by the way, I always think that this is one of the saddest things in life is that you learn and learn, and when you're at your wisest point, the most experience,
you die. Damn it. I don't know. Sometimes I think like some people don't learn anything. I feel sometimes that you've learned all you have to. You know, a lot of people just stop learning. Or unlearn it. I think they get more infantile with age. Like you can meet people who are like old and they seem like they haven't learned anything, and you'll meet a young person that's very wise and insightful, and it makes you wonder. So I'm not sure that you would think there's a direct correlation between age and wisdom, but sometimes I have to wonder, especially these days. And
one thing we should also probably add, well, we're gonna jump also around different countries and different cultures too, but I mean, we're here in LA, which I think adds its own spin to all right? This is a big city, it's a big town, this is like it's a unique place, I feel like, but you know, it might help understand people. I should say I don't live here full time, but I do spend time here. Dan, you live here full time. I know the crowds here a little bit, not as much as Dan, but I also spent a significant amount of time more on the country, more rural areas. Not extremely rural, but I think there's a things are a bit different. Dating is different out in the country, and the expectations are different, and the pace of life is different, and I think it changes a lot of the dynamics here when you have maybe less options and you have more the same. It's more likely that you meet somebody with the same sort of background, the same lifestyle. Do you see what I mean? Like that's one thing maybe to keep in mind. Maybe not, but I think it can influence quite a few things.
Yeah.
But
All right. Well, all good. Where should we begin this conversation? Like how do we dive in? I don't even know. Like there's so many. I guess
well, you pick your chapter.
my chapter. Yeah. So
Which out of your many chapters do you want?
as I said, like I
to
think
start with?
this started with this crazy period that I've gone through where I've had like this series of relationships and they just like got really intense really fast. I was interested in really starting. I came out of a long relationship. It was long distance and a bit complicated, but it was nearly 7 years, and that collapsed and over different reasons, distance being one of them, and my partner got sick, in fact, and it was just became untenable. But it was very painful, and shortly after I jumped, somebody else came into my life, and I started something pretty quickly. I was really interested in meeting a partner. I'm not a dating serial dater apps guy. I don't do the apps. I tried them long ago and it was fine. I met a couple people, but from what I hear, it's pretty toxic out there. And I just don't use them. I've always met people pretty easily and quickly through friends or whatever. And somebody else came into my life and she was extremely, extremely interested and jumped right in and was intense. And, it was probably quicker than it should have been. And then after a few months, it just, some things happened that were a little bit strange. And she pulled back and it really rattled me. And then I had some professional problems. I lost my job at the time and didn't help. It was just like a series of things that kind of started spiraling. And then to make a long story short, this relationship ended up being on again, off again. It's sort of 2 breakups, 3 cycles. So it was like one of these cyclical relationships that took a tremendous toll on me. Broke up, came back together, broke up again, got back together. So with a few months apart between, and it took a big toll. And there are a lot of details in there, of course, but this person was, had some characteristics that made me think that she had some disorder, or maybe it really made me question a lot of things. A lot of people thought she was a narcissist, and I know this term is thrown around a lot these days. You hear it all over social media. Everybody's talking about narcissism and all of this, and I think it's a bit overplayed, but I feel that there were some signs there that she might have perhaps had some of these characteristics in retrospect. Love bombing, intense love bombing. She wanted to have a kid, get married. We went into an IVF clinic. It was a bit crazy, and I wanted also to find my partner and get married. And I've never been. I don't have kids, so kind of it's late a bit in life for me. Spend my life busy with many other things, and it swept me off my feet. And then she kind of discarded and. So there were some traits there that fit that narcissist pattern and some of her personality features. Let's say a lot of people thought she was narcissistic and controlling and this and that. She could also be very sweet and charming, but again, many narcissists are. I don't know. I've never reached a conclusion as to what she was or is, but I know it kicked my ass, and it really made me doubt I guess women. Like I got pretty hurt. I tried really hard to keep this together. At the same time, I had some issues too, but it really created some wounds, I guess, which then spilled into the next relationship, which was very different. Again, long distance with somebody in a different country, in Brazil, as it happens, who I met with friends, and sweet person, really nice woman, and she was extremely interested, and I pushed her away at first because I said, I'm not ready for this. I just came out of a really tumultuous relationship, and actually tried to get back together with my ex because she was here. I didn't want to really get involved in a long distance relationship again. But then that fell apart, and some months later we reconnected, and it got really intense, and I actually spent time in Brazil with this person, and it got very, very intense, and I thought I found, and it was a massive difference. So you could say they were as different, exactly what the first partner wasn't, this person was. Steady, warm, affectionate, loving, very family oriented, as Brazilians are. If any of you know about that culture, it's a very warm and family oriented culture, traditional in many ways, but also fun and loving, and very, very, I fell in love with the culture and the woman, and she had a child, and very, very beautiful kid, and it was all great. But then, of course, some issues emerged because of the distance and logistics and complications and work, and how to make it work, and that led to me having a very bad reaction at one point. And I visited her. I had a kind of a panic attack and stressed out, and she got scared, almost like, was like, who's this person? And I turned the vacation upside down. I kind of made a mess of things and had some tantrums and some really nothing crazy, but still out of character, I would say, that made her step back. And I'm not proud of some of those behaviors. But then I felt like, okay, I started feeling like she's maybe trying to take advantage of certain things, wants something from me. All this stuff that I was carrying from past relationships started kind of clouding this new relationship. And I wasn't sure, is it her, financials, all kinds of different factors came into play, and I got suspicious, and I started doubting. I made some accusations, and she was the sweetest person, but then of course she got kind of shocked and reacted, and then it went off from there, and it spiraled, and we broke up, got back together, and then again it blew up, and I had some reactions that made me really question myself and ask myself what just happened there. Like I thought she was a perfect woman and partner. I loved her to death, yet I behaved in very inappropriate ways in some ways. And then she also was not very, I guess, willing to work through these issues, and rigid in some ways. But it made me wonder, okay, what is it that matters in relationships? Is it that ability to be resilient, to work through these problems? Was I right? Was she actually after something, wanted me to kind of help support her life in some way? Did she just want a partner, which is very important to I think many people of a certain age, especially in Brazil, again, very family oriented culture. Or what? Was it me? Was it her? Was it the dynamics? And how did it compare to my relationship with a woman in the States? So initially she was extremely different. My girlfriend in the States was more typical American, I guess you could say, more independent, very driven, career focused, and executive. The one in Brazil was a professional, a teacher, career driven in some ways, but essentially not. Basically said family is the number one thing, and work and all of these things are not as important, and it is more typical for Brazil, and so there's some cultural elements that came into play. At first they were lovely, but of course there is reality. You have to pay the bills.
which one would you prefer if you could pick any of them? Or
Well,
it doesn't matter.
yeah, I mean, so I think, you know, it was at first refreshing. It was after going through that mess with my girlfriend here and 3 breakups and very high expectations. She was essentially, because of my work and kind of instability at the time and changes, and she was a successful executive in a very go company. And she basically said, like, at one point, like, this is, you need to, like, get back in the saddle and, have your high flying corporate job and whatever. And it was clear she had certain expectations. She more or less said as much indirectly or directly. After that, and instability, like hot, cold behavior, again, kind of one foot out the door. It was just like godsend. It was like the most refreshing. It was like the ideal, the traditional woman. They have the trad girl, trad woman. I know there's like a fad out there that's a little weird, but this was like the real thing. This was a beautiful woman, very accomplished, very, in every way, very loving, very affectionate. It was like too good to be true almost. And who said, I want a family. This is important. Like and wasn't interested in any of these things. And she was successful in her own ways, but didn't care about, my level. She's like, well, you're we have so many things in common. She liked me a lot. We're the same, we have many interests, and the chemistry was fantastic and all of that. And, she wanted to build something, and it was very different. And I prefer that. It was night and day. I think it's like, what a lot of maybe guys complain about these days, at least in certain circles, that, women are, they have high expectations and this and that. And this woman was initially not that at all. It was the opposite. It's like, I'd like you for you. Come here. She actually wanted me to move to Brazil, which I wanted to do as well. But we're just working through the logistics. And so that's something that made me think a lot about, obviously, cultural differences and, how are women in different countries and what are the expectations. And I actually ran into some cultural issues with this. I didn't understand certain things about Brazilian culture and what's expected. I'm very much kind of trained in the American way of dating and expectations, and I treat women a certain way, and the way and those ways of, I guess, behavior in Brazil are considered kind of cold or not affectionate enough. So I ran into some issues with that, and maybe some of it is me, but I felt like there were definitely some cultural problems that I just ran into inadvertently. So that's another issue. But the point, I guess, is what happened is that relationship also ended badly. And so, is it me? Is it them? Is it a combination? I mean, I think in the last case, it was definitely me to a big degree, I think. So there's that discussion of bringing baggage to a relationship. Everybody knows, like, you have to try to avoid that, and you have to give yourself time between relationships, the usual advice that people give. I think it's good that, at least certainly people who know this will give, don't jump from one relationship to another too quickly, reset, be happy with things.
Don't they also say the only way to get over a relationship is to...
yeah. The only way, the only way to get over a girl is to get under another, or a guy.
Is it true? Is it not true? I don't know.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, sure. I think superficially it can be, because especially if you're the one who was brokenhearted, you want to get your confidence back.
That's a good point. So exactly for the one who got broken, basically.
Well, again, it can help with the grief, but that doesn't mean that processing. It can help your self-confidence and make you perk you up a bit, but I don't know if it's a good thing necessarily, because you're not processing the loss. You're not grieving properly, and it depends, of course, on the relationship, how long it was, how intense. Or you're married with kids. I mean, I think to jump out of a serious relationship and be heartbroken and then go out and get laid and think that's going to solve your problem would be a what do you call it? It would be false. It would be a highly probably.
Have you ever heard about this thing? I don't think it's true, by the way, but I once heard it takes as long as the relationship was to get over a relationship. Like if you had like a 5-year relationship, it takes like 5 years for you to get over this.
I've heard like half the time, half that
so
time,
5 years,
but
2.5 years.
yeah, exactly. I don't know, something like that. Yes, wow. That's something that's out there, but I think it really depends on the person, on the nature of the relationship, and how it ended. But it can take a long time.
If somebody dies or whatever, it's a different story than.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, let's just talk about, I guess, like breakup type of grief.
Let me dive back into this the Brazil thing just for a little bit, if okay, because you said once that basically there they had the rule you officially have to ask if somebody wants to be your girlfriend, right? You formally have to ask.
I mean, again, like I was in a part of Brazil that's more traditional, and in that state, in that area, there's the kind of like this formally, you have to ask somebody if they, to be your girlfriend, and they kind of have to say yes. So now there's like an official.
I love it. So I think
I mean, it's like, it makes it official, and you can even have like a little ring or something gift to make that beginning of the relationship official. Whereas here, you just kind of do it, or at least I've always been. You're seeing the person, and before you know, you're dating, and that's it. And then you get along, and it's like, oh, that's my girlfriend. One day you find yourself describing the person as your girlfriend, and it just naturally evolves. Whereas there, it's a bit more formal in a way. I mean, nothing crazy, but there's that. You gotta ask.
And what's the part you said that you might have come across cold because of what from coming from here? What?
Yeah, so Brazilian people are very affectionate and warm, and they're affectionate in their relations, like men and women. They're physically affectionate and emotionally, but physically, like they hold each other, they kiss each other. People kiss in the streets. It's a very, very affectionate and physical, touch-oriented culture, and then. And emotionally, they're extremely close, which has some really nice sides. Of course, people. She was extremely warm and touchy, like constantly.
And so, because we don't do that here,
not as much, right? I mean, it depends. Of course, there are differences. It's generalizations, but Americans are more. They're a little bit more distant and colder. I feel like a little bit more. People value their space and individuality, and especially when relationships start at the beginning, you don't want to pester somebody or overwhelm them. It's generally frowned upon, I would say, right? It can come across very quickly as needy, clingy, and people run fast. And women, if you're texting, hey babe, like too fast, and you're just, how are you doing? What's your day like? Hey, I love you. Hearts. So do that within the first week or two too much, and there's a good chance they're gonna run. Yeah, and again, it depends on.
He's saying so. I mean, obviously here you have to be very careful, right? Like
you have to amp it up slowly, and I think it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
But
know the person, get comfortable. Don't go too crazy. When I met this girl, and we met online initially through our friends, but we connected online, and we talked for months online, and I mean, very quickly she was just no holds, very fast, and it made it and she wanted to talk for hours, and it was very obvious she was very interested. Now, the woman that I met here was also kind of like that. Not as much initially, but once she let go, she was extremely passionate and intense, but then would kind of pull back. I mean, she had this hot cold thing, which became a real problem and probably was pathological in the end. I think, again, whereas the Brazilian woman was warm and stayed and just wanted, was clearly made her intentions very obvious, very fast, and very consistent. It was intense. And one of the downsides, I guess, was there was quite a bit of like jealousy, even like very fast, even before we officially were together. We were just talking, and I found myself being out with friends, and she'd be like, "Who's there? Is there a woman there?" And I was with my buddies, and several times, and I said, "Hey, like." I had to kind of say something at one point. And later we actually had some big blow-ups over it where she was extremely, not okay with me going out with my friends or, not out like partying, just even no matter where I was, like she was questioning who's there, are there women there? And it's known, like I think Brazilians are a bit like that, but I think maybe she was a bit more extreme. So that I wasn't okay with. And I don't think it's healthy, but so that's the downside of that, I guess. But the plus is that you do get a lot of attention and affection, and it's nice, and it seemed very genuine. I met her family. I mean, she was a wonderful, wonderful person in so many ways, and very genuine and very loving and very affectionate and very consistent. Until we had our things, and then it all kind of crumbled, and she pulled back, and she had this inability to engage in. And then these, like maybe the love glasses goggles came off, and then you see the person, you start seeing like, okay, it's not perfection, So again, kind of the theme here of these conversations we've been having that led to this kind of desire to put this online for others to see is like, hey, it's like you have this relationship, it seems great, it falls apart. There's these clearly negative features, I guess, that this person had, and this other person comes along and she's the opposite, and so genuine and fantastic and loving, and then that falls apart. And other, until when you have a conflict is when you really realize what the person is like. You really get to know them. Like the honeymoon phase is everybody's on their best behavior, and then you hit a wall, something happens, you lose your job, you got a disaster, I don't know, any number of life events. Things get difficult, reality sets in, and now you have to really make things work, and you have some conflict, and now how do you resolve that? And then you really find out what the person is like and whether you're compatible. And then of course, I have to ask myself, what's the common denominator in all of these relationships? Me, right? So obviously there's something going on here with me. Like, I don't want to just blame my partners for all the failures, but I definitely know, again, like in the last one, I brought a lot of baggage from the previous one. And again, because I jumped into it maybe too quickly, I actually walked away first, but I came back, and I gave some months, but still maybe not enough time to process all the stuff that had happened. And then of course that's a common result. You bring this crap with you, and you project whatever pain and wounds and hurt you just had, plus whatever other crap you might be carrying from the past, your childhood included, and then you pour it on this person.
So the one common theme was always also because there was so much stress at work, right? And you would sort of bring that stress basically into a relationship. And then now the question is, like, is your partner supposed to be there for you and sort of listen to you and then trying to help you sort of cope with this, or the other theory is, do you not want to bring this at home at all, right? And pretend everything is fine at work, that there's everything, even though you're going through some major, whatever issues, stressful times at work. So that's right. Those are like polar opposites in a way. Like, what is the way? Does it depend on the partner if they can be understanding? If not, or is it generally better to not bring it home? But then, how do you deal with this? Do you need to have some outlet, right? Like, people need to have.
Yeah.
At least most people, right? Like, there are very few people that really can process all of this sort of like internally, but.
Yeah, this.
And is she doing this? Did she do the same thing? Did she? I mean, she was in a good position, right?
She brought the problems would arise. No, we did discuss some issues that she had, and she would tell me certain things. Nothing maybe as serious as my things, which ended up as I lost my job. There were some serious matters there that can create a lot of stress. But she did have some issues, and she would discuss them, and I would try to advise. So it's not like she never complained. No, she did complain, but not endlessly. And I think I try not to complain endlessly either. But when things got really serious, and then problems, it was evident that there was a serious thing going on with my work. Then I got stressed, and I brought a lot more probably negativity and garbage in. And so I guess the question you were asking and we discussed is like, is it, how much of that should you bring home? And I think the general advice is keep your garbage, away from the relationship, and too much stress and negativity and work, and especially at the beginning. I think the issue with this is that early in a relationship, it has to be good. People expect fun and love, and you don't want to bring all this negativity right from the start, or the relationship will never blossom. I think it's a killer.
She said relationships have to be light and light and
light, easy and light. So
light.
Yeah, so what my Brazilian partner, in the end, like, once I had issues, and I lost a contract, and again, like, work difficulties, and the difficulty of moving to Brazil, and I was supposed to go there and move there and relocate. It became, there was a lot to deal with, and actually, and at some point she said, well, this is becoming too difficult, relationships shouldn't be this hard, it should be easier, they should be lighter, and that made me suspicious, and kind of said, wait a minute, well, I'm moving to a different country, I'm actually trying to learn the language, even I have to figure out a new life. That's not gonna be easy for me, or light. So I think I told her, like, if you wanted something light, maybe you should see somebody in your neighborhood, and so that doesn't have to go to a different, it wasn't a nice thing. I mean, we had some arguments, and I said some, I blurted out some kind of dickish things, because I was annoyed. And I was one of them, where I kind of accused her of, like, hey, this is not easy. But I will say, the thing that started this was that I threw some tantrums. Like, I got really stressed with work, and then she started backing off and reacting in some ways. And at some point, I think we had some arguments, and I ended up screaming and being like, nothing violent or crazy. Nothing, but enough to where, like, she recoiled, and then she's like, well, I know, and so it led to tension and conflict and arguments, and you don't want to have that. And it was like at a point where we really loved each other, and then she was like declaring, she was clearly in love, and she said later, like, I was so in love with you, but the way you reacted scared me, like it was too much, and all this stress and all this negativity. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I apologize. And I said, look, I was really stressed with work, and it was a lot, like, I have to move here, and I did, the job did end, it was things exactly what I had predicted happen. And so I saw the writing on the wall, and it really stressed me out. So, I started blaming her for not being understanding and not being a bit more, willing to work through these things to help me navigate this difficult period. And she just kind of backed off. And then that made me more, what ended up happening is what I realized is that I really loved her. I was at that point like head over heels for her. And the more I loved her, the more afraid I became of getting hurt and losing her. And that made me react in some really crazy ways, in a way like, I would sabotage it, or almost like I said, like want to end it first, just so I don't want to prolong a relationship that could create more memories and more pain. And so then through that, I started, like I said, learning about attachment styles, and I realized a few things about, that I may have some problems with my attachment styles, being not quite secure. And I don't know if some of you might be familiar with attachment theory, but I think there's something there, secure and anxious and avoidant, all of those. There's definitely, I found that pretty valuable, like a valuable framework to understand some of my behaviors and hers. I think she was very avoidant. Like she shut down, like once the stress and complications got severe, she just shut down. Like, and at the end, she just completely like didn't want to. And then the question then becomes, how much should you work to save a relationship where people claim they loved each other and there was a lot of good, but something blew up and you're having conflict? Do you throw your hands up and say, oh, it's too much? Or do you work on it? And so part of me agrees with her, saying, well, it shouldn't be that hard at the beginning, especially like if there's no honeymoon phase, what's the freaking point? It's only going to get harder, right? So you want to start high and stay high for as long as you can, because sooner or later it's going to start going downhill. So if it's down here at the beginning, like you're only going to reach the bottom faster. Or the other way of thinking about this is, no, if you can work through these problems, early problems as they might be, given, of course, there's no toxicity, violence, abuse, craziness, which it wasn't in our case, nothing like that, but, still intense arguments and complications. And but if you can work through these and understand each other and communicate through them properly and figure out a way to, because there's conflict styles, like how people argue with each other and people withdraw. Some people are attack, and there's this guy I saw online, I forget his name, but it's like I forget the name of his program that he has, but it's from conflict to, I forget, it's something like that, but he teaches like kind of the different styles of the way people argue, and some are the screamers and they attack, and some are they pull back, and they're not bad people, but they just have different styles, and you have to understand that, and you have to use conflict resolution techniques and ways of time out and understand each other, so you don't hurt each other verbally, emotionally. No, I'm not talking physically, that's a different level, and of course that shouldn't be tolerated. But and because you can throw away a good thing if you walk away too soon. And so I guess the question is, where, how much should you fight for it? How much should you go through this? Do you go to therapy? Do you talk it out? Do you, how many attempts do you make to try to fix this? I believe that if you can get through some of these issues and understand each other's styles, and you can actually come out the other side stronger. And once you get through these bumps and turbulence, there's smooth air, because now you know each other and you've overcome some hardships, and sweet things can happen on the other side, because now you speak each other's language, and when you're stepping on each other's toes, and you don't misinterpret, because you can misinterpret your partner's signals. And especially if you have all these attachment problems and wounds. Like, I might love you to death and I want not lose you, but I'm scared of getting hurt, so I'm gonna back off and say something stupid or attack or sabotage, and you think, oh, he's an asshole, or it doesn't help. or he doesn't like me, he doesn't love me, and then you run. And so now both people are misreading each other. You got miss signals, and it blows up because it's simply you're not understanding. You're speaking a different language. You're in different wavelengths. And if you could connect properly and understand what your language is, love language, even in the love languages that are very popular, is it physical touch and gifts? You guys know the love languages. And I think that's also useful, because people communicate affection and love in different ways. And know that, know your affection style.
So here's a question that I have for you. How often, so when these conflicts arise, right? I find that often there are actually no real conflicts between the two partners in a relationship, but you're basically you're projecting, okay?
Yeah, well, of
course. I think is the most absurd thing that now.
I mean, sometimes there are real conflicts, but often it is exactly that.
It's an external thing.
Yeah, you're projecting.
You're projecting. You're using your partner as a wall or as a mirror.
A mirror. I mean, projection is very common. And that's another thing that happens.
But a lot of people don't know about this. I think about this because you don't. It takes a lot of mental sort of insight to realize if you're projecting now or not.
Well, I think in that moment you don't realize it. You realize it in hindsight when you're thinking about what the hell did I just say? It's like, why did I attack my partner? Like, why did I say that? Mm-hmm. What was that really about? Like, I can tell you in my case, I said some things that I feel pretty ashamed about, and I kind of accused her of certain things. And said it in a kind of a mean way. Again, nothing like we didn't curse each other or nothing crazy, but still mean.
Never a curse word. Nothing.
I mean, I said like fuck something, but not at her. Like, okay. I mean, we were pretty polite in that. But still mean, still hurtful. Like I kind of, let's say character, not assassination, but character attack. Yeah. And those are hurtful words. You say, they can be far worse than, fuck you. Yeah. I mean, I think, words, they can be very polite and eloquent and really cut deep. So curse words are probably not the lightest. I mean, I think you can say some pretty mean things and say them very politely, and they can be extremely hurtful and damaging to a relationship. And, so it was more like that, and her too, like once she attacked, she was extreme. Like me, I raised my voice a few times, so that was a bit out, kind of out of character for me, but that was something that she did not appreciate, and that's not good. Like raise my voice, and that's another way of you're talking over the person because you're feeling unheard. At least she was saying these things, and I was hurt, and anyhow. But again, not good things. So, but that, some people don't tolerate that. Either you raise your voice at me, you're screaming, or I don't tolerate that, and it's not a good thing. Yeah. But then
what's not a good thing, that they don't tolerate it, or
no, that raising your voice in general, I don't think. But it happens. People scream at each other all the time. I have friends who scream at each other, and at couples, and they're fine, And I'm like, Jesus, what a crazy. But I know them, and and different people have different tolerance for this. I think a lot of people would say, well, I don't want to scream, and most people don't like screaming at each other and don't think that's healthy. But I mean, come on, a lot of relationships will have fight, most maybe that where, screaming occurs, and they get over it and they move on, and it's fine. But I don't, I don't think it's healthy, right? I don't like screaming, and I don't scream, but I did hear or raise my voice, and that bothered her. That she was one of those people where that was acceptable. Mm-hmm. We have friends that I think we both know that scream at each other like crazy, and and they love each other to death, and then we know they do, but they're different people, and then the relationship is much longer. And anyhow, it's certainly again at the beginning
quickly, and they both yell, and
it's kind of just like they're just hot tempered. and it's like, oh my God. And sometimes it's like the woman who yells more, you know,
Yes.
and you know, but again, different styles and different people and personalities, and you know, if you can be more like hot tempered a bit and you know, expressive, and the other person's calmer and they don't like conflict, and they get, you know, easily kind of whoa. So that then there's a personality mismatch, so you're gonna have an issue.
Okay. So now, personality mismatch. Okay, so can you learn to deal with this? Should you learn to deal? If we're talking about screaming, right? And now you know that the other person basically, it helps them process whatever. Okay, and for like 10 minutes or for 5 minutes, they're gonna scream, and after this, you know, it's gonna be again smooth.
Well,
air,
again,
smooth
I
should you, if she is like cannot tolerate it or doesn't tolerate it, okay, personality differences or whatever, but we're talking about 5 minutes here. Okay, for 5 minutes, okay, you just sit there and listen to the other person, like, you
Screaming.
know, go through their therapy, right? Like their 5 minutes of whatever. You know, it's like the dog running for 5 minutes, like getting should you work? So should you, or is it even possible? Okay, to learn. Okay, to sort of accept this, not accept this, but
accept the scream. So are you saying like, should I sit there and
you can make it work? Like
let this person scream away so they can vent? You know, and I was like, okay, because
you just get out of the way. You just step back.
No, I personally would not want a person to be screaming at me and be, you know, again, it depends what's said during the screaming, but generally the idea of having my partner screaming for 5 minutes and me sitting there and listening to this just so I can allow them to flush it all out, it doesn't seem too appealing to me, you know. I don't think I'd want to be at the
it's not appealing.
Not appealing, but I don't think I'd want that kind of partner, you know. So again, like I think that would be pretty damaging, you know, for me. Like it would probably break. Maybe not. I'd tolerate it once, twice, but I wouldn't allow it to happen. I wouldn't allow it to become a regular habit and a pattern, because I don't think I want to put up with that and listen to or tolerate this kind of thing. I would, you know, there's okay. I think again, people will scream or will say stuff, but like 5 minutes of barrage of, you know, and especially if they're insult. Again, it depends on what's being said, but no, 5 minutes of screaming and insults or you know, complaints or craziness or, and if it happens, that's not good. That's not I don't think that's healthy. I raised my voice here, and there were moments of extreme frustration, and again, it was out of character, but I sided with her and said, it's not, I don't want to do that, you know. So there's a thing, emotional regulation, and I think people have to regulate their emotions so they don't do that. You know, that's the ideal. Like, if you're a screamer and you find yourself losing your temper quickly and going from 0 to 60 and starting to scream at the person, you should be the one to work on that. You know, like, I think you need to get that under control, and emotionally regulate yourself. So the burden is on you to fix that problem, not on the other person to put up with your screaming. I don't think that's right.
Okay.
But the other person should give you some chances and should kind of express if they love you, right? If the relationship, you know, they say, hey, I don't tolerate this. Work on it. I love you. Be supportive. But that was hurtful and crazy, and you know, somehow. And I mean, she said that. Like, she did say, like, I don't tolerate. You know, I was very hurt. I don't tolerate. I don't like that. I don't want it to happen again. And I apologized, but then it happened actually a couple of times. But then in the end, it didn't happen. It was something else. Like, there was another thing there. We can talk about that, where I ran away. Like, I just said, okay, I want out. Like, I was afraid of getting hurt. And so it was more like running away response. So no, I'm not going to scream. I'm just going to leave, and she was hurt by that as well. And you could say, well, that's hurtful too. And I think, like I said, I think I blocked her because she said something really mean and hurtful. And I was like, wow, so it got into this kind of, it's like, people, well, this sounds all toxic and crazy. Like, this is not good. And I was like, well, it was like really good. But yeah, we couldn't navigate these moments of conflict and stress. And there was a high stakes, situation where for this relationship to work, my life, for example, big changes had to be made. And so, perhaps it was too much, but in any case, I think back to screaming, I think the burden is on the person, the screamer, to get that under control. I don't think it's a good thing. That's my opinion. And I mean, you can scream once and people can get frustrated. I don't think, it depends, but 5 minutes of a barrage, and if, some people are crazy and they start yelling and berating their partner and throwing, especially if it gets violent, or that's not in any way acceptable, but even screaming and raising your voice, and I think it's a form of really, it can become emotionally abusive. And then she actually said like, well, that's emotionally abusive. And I was like, well, I'm not abusing. I mean, it's like I reacted to this situation, and it wasn't. I think she was particularly sensitive to this kind of thing. Personality, maybe something had happened. I was under tremendous stress. And it just lit the, I think both of us are really pretty decent people, nice people, but yeah. So, but yeah, I don't want to do that again. I think I don't, with anyone, and you definitely need to regulate your emotions. So I think the burden is on the person who has this issue too, or find somebody who, but again, I think everybody should be able to regulate their emotions and stay calm. It's very important in all areas of life, not just relationships. You don't want to lose your temper. I don't think nobody was going to say that's a good thing. Work but there's a limit. Everybody has a limit, right? And at some point,
yeah, I mean,
you break.
I think screaming is there for a reason. Why? You know what I mean? Like, it was
sure.
It's a way of processing things, and then obviously it's not the only.
There's screaming meditation. I went to a screaming meditation, and yes, it is a way of letting it out, but do it on your own time. Yeah, go to your room and scream, and that's what. There's like, I went to this ashram one time in India.
Wow.
Yeah, the ashram had a screaming meditation. They were like, I didn't actually go to that because it was very early in the morning, but yeah, that's what they do.
Wow.
So yeah, you can scream, you can lock your way, you can go to screaming meditation, you can scream in your room.
Everybody has stress, right? And everybody, you don't want to just like not deal with it, right? Because then it sort of, adds up.
Yeah, but I don't think screaming at a person that, you don't want to dump your garbage on your partner and scream in their face. I think it can be abusive, emotionally abusive. Yeah. I mean, it is, like, if it's, yeah, I don't think it's a good thing. But again, different people have different tolerances for this thing. And we know people who can kind of occasionally scream at each other, and it's just, they do it a bit there's a lightness to it almost. It's kind of like a sport. It's become a sport versus attacking and vicious and hurtful. So some people scream because they're just, yeah, it's like almost like their way of communicating. They tend to be louder and more animated, and occasionally screaming at each other, or even insulting. It's just, but then they come down quickly and they're in each other's arms the next minute, and you're like, what the hell is going on here? And
yes.
Again, we know some of these people, but so everybody's different. But I think there's a certain kind of hurtful, attacking, screaming, and again, what's said is important. It's not just screaming; it's also the context and what is said. Anyhow, back. Okay, enough about that. I think the issue is, yes, that people should emotionally regulate themselves as much as possible, learn how to communicate, and the question is how much effort should be put into fixing relationships, and when do you walk away? And here, like I felt, for me, this person, yeah, she pursued this and declared her love, and there was a lot at stake. It was kind of, she had a child, and I came to really love her child as well, and she kind of pushed like, we're your family, all that. So it was like a very complex dynamic, and I really, really loved her. Her daughter, her family, the culture, and I was kind of like all in, and I made some kind of sacrifices to try to make this work, and then because of these conflicts, you just withdrew and said, that's it, we're done. And it was just insanely painful. And so I'm like, wait, okay, I know I misbehaved a bit, but there were some reasons, and why can't you work through this with me a little bit to see this to the end, because you started it. It's not like we both, but I was actually very reluctant right at first to engage in this because of the complications of the distance, but I saw she's a wonderful person, and I fell in love. But I don't want to say, well, you made me fall in love with you, but you certainly worked hard to make me fall in love with you. And I would often say, let's slow it down a bit, let's figure it out, let's make sure we have a plan. And again, I walked away once because I was just like, look, I think you're amazing, but the long distance thing, I can't deal with it. I've been through it once, and right now it's not a good time. So I just kind of said, okay, let's just stay friends. And she wasn't comfortable with that, or we parted ways, and actually tried to rekindle with my ex, and that didn't work. I gave it some time and reached out and said, hey, I want to visit her, and she was still open to it. And because I did it, I thought she was a wonderful person, and we liked each other a lot, and there was a lot of chemistry there, and we fell in love with each other. And I thought she was the one. That's it. And she did as well. She told me later, we both did. So it's like, because it was a great match. It was, again, everybody maybe thinks so, and it's like, it's that honeymoon phase. It's not, you guys don't. But, I think there were a lot of things. I'm not like a young and naive person. I have like certain expectations, and she checked a lot of boxes, and I did for her as well, and we had a lot in common. But the stress of the circumstances started creating these things, and I had some bad reactions. She didn't respond well to them, and it created rifts.
Okay, I need to jump into these expectations again, because I think that's one of the main issues on both sides, that you have sort of, what can you go into a relationship having expectations? Yes, everybody does it, okay, but I always keep saying the same thing, that life happens, and it's severe things happen overnight without anybody's fault, okay, and you have physical expectations, right? Like, the woman needs to be attractive, but you also have, I'm sure, other expectations. You want the woman to be doing, I don't know, like have a job, I guess, work, or do a good job raising the kids, or whatever the expectations, the very common expectations might be. But then I always like to say that this can change overnight. Like, you can have an accident or a disease can come in, and all of a sudden everything changes. Everything. Like, your partner can become handicapped overnight. Mm-hmm. Okay, one day, successful executive, what have you, okay, chatting around the world, and the next day some disease where there's no cure, okay, and then this person is handicapped. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have to sort of like, I think you have to ask yourself before you go into a relationship, knowing that both people have to ask themselves, hey, yes, I have these expectations, but I know that this can change in a month from now on, and then we're in a completely different situation. And I think it's a good mental exercise, okay, to obviously don't want this to happen, but sooner or later you're gonna have some life events, life changing events, or life events, right? That's what they're called. And so you cannot, like, those expectations can't be like showstoppers, or shouldn't be showstoppers. Okay, I think you need to go, or both people need to go in there and separate the relationship, which is happening, I think, mostly up here. Yes, the chemistry and all this stuff. Okay, but I think a partner should be capable of loving each other and having a relationship that exists primarily up here. Okay, and so no matter what the outside circumstances are, if you're losing your job, if you're having a hard time finding a job, if somebody needs to get treatment, or somebody got a horrible diagnosis, or if somebody lost a leg and can't walk anymore, or what have you, or if somebody needs to go live abroad for some period. Yes, it's hard. All these things are hard. Okay, all these things are hard, and yes, it can make a difference if somebody does it voluntarily. If they're saying, well, I don't have to go there, but I really do want to go there. That's a different thing again. But like these, yes, you should have some expectation. Like you should expect that the other person basically, like, wants to be together with you as much as you want to be together with that person, right? That's one expectation, right? And that you both, like, if something happens to you, that your partner basically, stays by your side, right? And vice versa. So those expectations, I guess, should be there, right? On both sides. But I think it's not a good start to basically go in there with these outside expectations, saying, yes, we want to live in this, we need to live in this kind of house or whatever, and you need to have a job, and I need to have, or like these role models, right, or these classic gender roles and all this stuff. I understand that it takes some mental capacity to to kind of think through this all. Okay, not everybody has this ability, I guess, or this capacity. Sounds like a bit, doesn't sound right, but like this ability, I guess, or the sense to kind of think like this, or think through this. But anyways, I'm coming back to this. Well, last time we talked about this, this in sickness and in health, okay? Because I mentioned this because this is not something new, okay? And this has been around for hundreds of years, and people have been knowing or knew about this or know about this for a long time. And it's just like a good little reminder, okay, why these things, like in sickness and in health, and probably, in riches and in poverty and like all these things, it's not just sickness and health, right? You can apply this to lots of things, and in good times and in bad times, right? In turbulent times and smooth times, and sunny skies and dark skies, right? And whatever. I just think this is a good sort of a good discussion to have, okay? And an important thing.
I mean,
because if you have this, so right, if you really sort of, both people sort of understand this, then you should be able to work through a lot of this stuff. A lot.
Well, so I think this is the age-old kind of, this is like the idealized version of love and relationships, and till death will us part, and I'm gonna stick with you through thick and thin, and through sickness, and in sickness and in health, right? The vows, yeah. But the reality is a little bit different, and as much as we want to have that, it often doesn't work, and there are needs that people have that when they fail to be met, you lose your love, and then you can't capture it, and then you're miserable, and then at some point you want to walk away from from this person, and how do you prevent that? Like how do you, people change, people drift, people drift apart, and they change in ways that are no longer compatible sometimes. Or I think that's why it's important to find a partner that you're compatible with, and kind of really not be superficial in the things that it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, if you just want to hook up and have fun, then don't look too deeply. I guess it doesn't matter. But if you really truly want a partner for life or for a long time, and you want to build a family, I mean, of course you have to really assess that partner's compatibility with you and their qualities, and make sure that they have the kind of qualities that you want in a long-term partner that can help you achieve whatever dream in life you want to have with them, and whatever relationship, what's important to you in a relationship. Do they want a family? Do they want kids? Are they at a, let's say, I don't know, educational level or whatever, like, can you talk to them? Do you have things in common? These are simple things. So, because ultimately the physical infatuation and attraction, the limerence, as they say, wears off, of course. That excitement of the first months or years, after 2 years, it's gonna start wearing off. I mean, maybe it's a year, 2 years, 3, after some number of years, it's not gonna be as intense. And the only connection you're gonna have is, the connection shifts more to a mental connection, intellectual connection, attachment, a deeper attachment. However, at the beginning, so the factors that are important at the beginning of a relationship are different from the factors maybe that are important later, and or at least what when it comes to attraction. So, and kind of connecting to this person. So, for example, these challenges, and if they happen too early in the relationship, if I unload on my girlfriend with my job and start, after 2 months of dating, the bond might not be strong enough to withstand that. Like, we're not married, we don't have family, the attachment, we haven't built a life together where I can say, well, yeah, now I have to really stand by this person. Like, you still have that choice to say, this is too much, too fast, too early. And it's easier to just, turn your back and say, too much for me, it's too early, I'm gonna find somebody who doesn't have these problems. Again, because I think people have intuitively kind of this thing, well, if things are this hard now, what are they gonna be? Everybody kind of has this sense that things are, relationships, they, this intensity and affection or intense attraction, it wears off with time. And so you really want to start really high with as few problems and as light and as joyful as possible, so that 10 years later, you're still kind of at a, even if it wears off and some things become less intense, you're still at a point where you can sustain this relationship. And again, it's not just that, but you might find some qualities in this person that are just intolerable for you. They're not acceptable. Like, my girlfriend said, well, you raise his voice. I just like an absolute no. They have boundaries, and there are some absolute no's. And there's some lines that are not to be crossed, and some boundaries and some things that are just disqualifiers, and that's it. Simple. And better you get those out of the way early and say, okay, I'd rather stop now than stop in 5 years after we build a life and I realize, I really can't tolerate these behaviors, and you're not changing, and you're the same person you were back then, and I thought you're going to change, but you're not. And now we have a family and a home, and now becomes married, and it's way more complicated to split this partnership.
Is it? I mean, you make it look like, okay, you start up here and then sort of like you're trying to slow, I guess, the fall as much as possible. I mean, shouldn't it be more like
steady or even going higher?
Is it possible that it goes like this?
Um,
Can it get
so
better over time? Shouldn't it be?
yes,
like that?
well, so that's a great question. I think um, I think that yes, certain things do. I think it changes, right? I think when I was talking about this decline, it was more in the sort of physical attraction or that kind of intensity of attraction that you feel during that initial stage of the honeymoon stage. That part, wanes over time. Like you just, and I think that's most people would agree to. Now there might be exceptions, and hopefully it stays intense forever, but chances are it won't. But I think it's replaced with something else, something deeper, like which is what real love comes in. Let's say, because the first few months are an infatuation. People are attracted to each other. They have a physical attraction. You're all over each other. It's an infatuation. There's like these profound chemical reactions that happen, neurochemical reactions that happen in your brain. We can talk about that. Dopamine and oxytocin and vasopressin, and then there's a lot that's understood now about the circuitry of attachment that happens. It's like a drug. Love and attachment triggers the same pathways as heroin, as opioids, the dopamine pathways, and then the oxytocin, the same chemical that attaches a mother to her child. And these are really, really powerful and vasopressin in men. And so this is well understood now. And so there are profound brain changes that happen when two people come together physically, sexually. And these are not, they are literally, your brain is being rewired. And that forms the attachment that's necessary to keep a couple together for mating purposes. It's an evolutionary thing. And so when people break up, the circuits are broken, like that. You get a dopamine collapse and you have withdrawal. It's as if a heroin addict doesn't have their drug. It's the same exact pathway. The love pathways, love functions on many of the same, or this attachment on many of the same pathways as drugs, as heroin and opioids. And actually attachment circuits from relationships are even stronger because there are other chemicals involved, like oxytocin and vasopressin and men that aren't involved in opioids, and those are meant to create longer duration bonds and stronger bonds even, and so that's what makes heartbreak so incredibly painful sometimes physically. It's not an imagination. You are physically ill and incapacitated. You can really be quite damaged from a heartbreak. And it's very, very emotionally hard. And so that's a chemical, neurochemical reaction.
And just to jump in here, because you're saying that at the advanced age, sort of these reactions still can be as sort of dramatic, right? It doesn't get easier over time, right? Like this breakups don't become easier as you, because I sometimes feel like the more often sort of you experience this.
No, I mean, I can only,
coming,
from
right?
my own experience, I've had breakups in the past, and I would say this one was probably, the one before was pretty difficult. It's been, like I said, like two back to back, and it's what led me to this conversation. That have kicked my ass, and it made upturn many things that I thought I knew about myself and relationships. And you think, well, you're older, you're like a bit more pragmatic, you don't get as intense, but no, it can happen. It can hit anybody at any time. Love can hit you at any age, at any time. You think you know yourself, you don't sometimes, and you think you know how to handle relationships, you don't. You maybe realize that you don't. And so, I guess back to this discussion of, you know, what wanes and what strengthens. This intense physical attraction might wane, but what replaces it is this attachment feeling of, if love is there, and that's way deeper. Now you have the same bond with this person that's much deeper if things go well, like I want to say like between a mother and a child, but something more along those lines. You know, it's way more intense. So if you reach that level where that love solidifies, and that attachment and the relationship is good, well, yeah, I might not have these intense sexual feelings towards my partner, but I love them way more than I did in the beginning. And if something happens to them, I'm willing to give my life for them. You know, the mother, you know, my spouse, my child, my mother, my children, things like that, and that is way more intense and powerful, and that's where you want to reach, right? If you hope to have a partner for life, and so I think that's a different. So in that sense, no, that goes up. So one kind of, let's say, attraction wanes over time and is replaced with another kind of attraction and attachment that is the actual real bond that we could call love, which is this profound, I've heard it read in a book, a displacement of the ego, you know, where that person becomes more important in a sense than than yourself. I think in general, the good thing about relationships and loving is that and parenthood and things like that, and giving to others, is that you take yourself out of the equation. You become less focused on yourself, less self-centered. And the less self-centered you are, the happier you are. Like, we're very social beings, and your average person, of course, there's a lot of variation, but when we talked about this, you know, well-adjusted, you know, but your average person, we're social animals, and we draw pleasure from connection to others. I mean, that probably brings the greatest happiness to people, is connection to others. And the most profound connection you can have is with a loving partner, you know, because you have friends, you have family, you have parents, you have children, of course. Well, a child, that's probably the most profound and the deepest connection, you know, let's say the connection between a mother and a child, and a father and a child as well, but the mother-child bond is extraordinarily strong. And beyond that, the romantic partner, the right romantic partner that you actually love, allows you to care about somebody more than you care about yourself, you know, displace your ego. Like, that's what it's been, like I said, described as, and I forget what book I read that called it that, but so yeah, and that's kind of the nirvana of love, or real love, is when you really care more about this person. Almost, it's not to say like I'm gonna kill myself but to save you, or to sacrifice myself to facilitate some, let's say, toxic behavior. You know, you get to a point, it's like unconditional love, the whole concept of no matter what you do, I'm going to love you and I'm going to tolerate. You know, there's a limit to that, and you have to kind of be careful with how far you take that, because people can become harmful, right? If my partner is abusive and violent, and then, you know, they hurt themselves or me or the, you know, others around, you know, how much do I tolerate that and love them and support them and give before it hurts me? Like, I mean, that's a whole different discussion, but, you know, assuming that people are more or less, again, well-adjusted in normal circumstances and nothing extremely toxic or harmful is going on, you should have these feelings of really wanting to be there for that person no matter what. Like you said, they lose their leg, they get burned, they have a car accident, they get cancer, they lose their job. You're there for them and you want the best for them and you're going to stay with them through thick and thin. And that's love. And that's that attachment because you love them. And that is that strong attachment or love and that's the next level, right? And that takes time to build, it doesn't happen overnight. And, you're not going to have that. What you have in the first few months is not that, it's limerence, it's infatuation, it's that strong. And those circuits that are still being developed and those take time to develop. And circumstances, maybe hardship, when you go through a hardship when somebody is there for you, and you've experienced this with friends, somebody has done something great for you, like you're going to be there for them. It's kind of like a human impulse to reciprocate. I'm not saying like you should only do good for things for people who do good for you, but it's not tit for tat. But certainly if you see that the partner is there for you consistently through difficulties and you're a decent person, you're going to want to be there for them. And that strengthens the bond, right? And that kind of creates those deep attachments.
I think if I heard you right the other day, like you think you have to have this first phase, right, in order to get into the second phase. Like this is sort of like you cannot just jump over the first phase. Basically, you have to have this first phase. So
when you say the first phase, phase of infatuation,
yes, to build these circuits and so on. Because I'm thinking, okay, I think there's nothing wrong with it, okay? But when you look at like older guys, okay, like some guys like 60 years old and his wife dies or whatever, and now he has a new partner, okay? Same age, okay? And I think they can go from one relationship to the other, okay? Without going through this again, like, I'm sure there's this phase of a new beginning in a way, but I feel like they can go, and that might be an age thing, where the 70-year-old can switch over to another relationship with another 70-year-old man with the woman, and without this 3 months of like this crazy, like oxytocin, dopamine kind of circuitry building. I think they can pretty much jump into the second phase right away and like just like deal with the same stuff.
So I think so. I think there's some age variation. So I'm not an expert in this by any means, but we both
none of us are. No,
we both have some training, right?
Yes.
We should say we both have medical training. So
we're
not experts in any of this, but we do have an understanding of certain things. The way the human body functions and psychology and so on. But probably above average, but certainly not expert. I think my sense is that with age, some of these let's say infatuation type things wane, maybe, like you just don't have the same, let's say sex is not as important. You're looking for other things and you fall in love with people for different reasons when you're 60 than when you're 25. When you're 25, there's like one thing on your mind, and we know what that is. Okay, and if you think you're gonna fall in love with somebody without that at 25, most people will say no. Now at 65, there's some guys I know who will say they're still like 25, nothing's changed. It gets worse. But in general, like people look for different things. They're more mentally, like, frankly, there's probably some physiological reasons. Your sex drive wanes with age. It's just a fact. Men's testosterone starts dropping, and by the time they reach their 60s, they just don't have the same sexual drive. So it's not, they don't have those intense urges, and so they don't look at women and say, wow, I'd love to. It's just different. It's not there. So they look for other things. And same in women. Yeah? And so that's the reason why people are, and perhaps that's some people say, like, you can find real love and meaningful love later in life because you don't have this intense sexual crap. Like, you jump maybe right to that second stage, you know. You actually try to connect to the person based on their personality and likes, and have an intellectual or mental connection. And of course, you have a lot more experiences under your belt, and you know what you like and you don't like, and you can really filter out who you like and what you like much faster. And so you, and versus you're young, you don't know anything, and
you just care less about these things when you get older.
Which things?
Well, the things you like and don't like, or whatever, or you.
No, I think you care more. People are more set in their ways when you're older. Like, you know what you like and don't like, and you're probably
more
have to.
rigid in your thinking.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're more. I would, yes.
I would think that. I mean, I understand that, but I would think the other thing also exists, because you're like, oh, yeah, sure, I can deal with this. This is fine. This is also fine. You know. Like, yeah, I can.
I think
I don't need this. This is not the only thing, because now you have more experience. You know, like, sure. I mean, if every Tuesday you want to do, I can sort of. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think it can go in both ways. I understand the more rigid thing, but sometimes I have the idea, or this feeling that also you can sort of be more. You care less about certain things as you get older, right? Because
you care less about certain things,
because
but
it doesn't actually matter, because you learned, hey, it doesn't actually make a difference, like.
Yeah, perhaps you would think so. Yeah, that you take some things more in stride, and you realize, you learn what's important, what's not. But not always. Like, you see a lot of people, they get older and they seem to care more and more about stupid things that shouldn't matter. I think it's just, again, this thing with this wisdom really come with age. I don't know. I'm not so convinced. And sometimes people continue to care about stupid things to the end. And what may be stupid things to me is not stupid to them. I don't know. But the back to this kind of connection thing and what's important, and you asked, like, is it possible to fall in love and without this infatuation stage? I would say certainly younger people, no. Like, I'm and that includes me, and I'm still, like, I'm not young, but I'm still at that thing where, for me, I still need that. And if I still need it at my age, then I think, like, yeah, maybe in like 10, 20 years when that will change, I don't know. But that attraction is so strong. It's such a primitive kind of primal thing that if you don't have that physical attraction for the person, and again, this is talking, me, and I would say younger people in general, some attraction or physical, there has to be that something there, I think. It's, and again, there's always the exceptions. Everything's on a spectrum, by the way. So whatever I say, we talk about averages, and I don't want to get into statistics here, but everything is kind of like on this distribution, right? So on average, this is the case, and there's always exceptions, and some people can really fall deeply in love on just mental connections, and physical appearance doesn't matter much. And it, even for me, I mean, you may meet somebody that physically you're just, and you have such a astounding bond in some other ways, and such a connection and such a profound mental thing or some experience that you could fall in love with, so anything is possible. But on average, I think that physical attraction is very important at the beginning.
To that point, is this because I'm not sure if this physical attraction is sort of like what you think is attractive or not, sort of, that is, I think you can sort of change it. This is sort of, it's a learned behavior, right? Well, to some degree. right?
Are we talking about like what's attractive and what's not attractive, or
what people find attractive?
Well, that's a whole we talked about. It's a whole discussion.
Because no, it's important. It's important because can you learn? So if like basically you see somebody, but you're like, oh my god, these like good points, but these other points that I don't like, okay, and I don't find attractive, okay. Like you find this part attractive, but this part is not attractive. Because what are the chances that everything...
You mean physically or
yes, for example, physically or also like certain behaviors. Like what I mean, are you attracted?
But
when you say attraction, is it just physical or is it also?
No, I'm talking about physical attraction. Just to separate
right.
the two things.
So
Just to keep it.
All right.
Yeah.
So
physical attraction. Let's talk. I mean, again.
Because the way sort of it sounds when you say it, it's like okay, there's one person here and one.
Well,
person
again,
here.
Attraction is on many levels and the dimensions, and it's character. Like attraction is complex and
Okay,
it has.
so not just physical.
I think the whole picture is not just physical, right? But physical attraction is an important element. Again, in my view, and certainly for me,
But is this something that you can influence yourself? Is this your cultural sort of thing? Is this your own sort of idea that you have what you find attractive? Okay, and can you influence?
Well, I mean, again, what people find it, what is considered attractive, we talked about it earlier. It has both a sort of universal element that I think there's some universality about what is attractive. We talked about symmetry and things. So there's some attractive, what humans have kind of like genetically imprinted that attraction has to do with features, facial symmetry, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of considered to be universal. And then there's cultural elements because, what people find attractive here might not be attractive in the tribes of Amazon. And then what's attractive today, you look back 500 years and might not be attractive. Back then, like being very plump was attractive, and now being very thin. Being brown is attractive here, and being white is attractive there. We know, like,
correct. So
here in the Western culture, like, tan people are attractive. Yes, in other cultures, lighter people are attractive. Exactly. Is attractive.
Obviously, this mental experiment again, this thought experiment. Like, if you now have to live with this other tribe, right? How long does it take you to be attracted to what they are attracted to? Do you see?
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert in this.
No. But, I think it's a good experiment. Okay, just to understand that we're not just like implanted with this thing. It's not just a biological thing, not a genetic and evolutionary thing. It is.
So I see where you're going with it. So you're saying,
but
if you can change your perception about what is attractive, if we can put ourselves in this thought experiment where I'm moving to I'm parachuted in an Amazon tribe, and now I have to live there and find a mate in an Amazon tribe.
You have to,
let's say, and they might look very different.
You basically have to learn, okay.
Well, not learn, but let's say I'm a heteroman. Like I'm in the forest. I'm in the jungle now. I'm horny. And I that's it. That the rest of my life I have to spend in this tribe. So the chief comes, is like, hey, you're gonna, we have all these ladies around, and they're maybe not what I grew up with, and so will I find somebody attractive there? Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's interesting, and I probably will. I probably would. I'm sure there will be a female specimen there that I will find attractive.
So yeah. You will learn to find.
But the question, again, the question is like, well, I don't know, or maybe you change maybe your attraction patterns will change over time if you need it bad enough,
I think so.
And then you fall in love with them because, hey, now she becomes, yeah, sure. So if you take that thought experiment out and say, okay, now apply that here, pretend you're in, and then why do you need I see where you're going. It's interesting.
Just a little bit. It's just you can just move the the parameters a little bit, and it helps to understand sort of human nature, I think, a little bit. Okay, and it helps sort of to understand that it's not black and white, right?
Well,
it's not
I mean,
are you attracted to this person or not? Well, this I find attractive. No, there's a learned sort of like, it's not, you are not born with this. Okay, just
no,
like,
of course you're
just
not.
like we don't have a like a
but babies, they look at attractive people. Babies always stir me. Oh boy.
Anyways, it's I think worth talking about to understand sort of, okay.
I mean, again, that's why I think way too much emphasis is placed on physical attraction in this culture, right? It's become a bit nuts, right? And not a good thing. And I think your thought experiment points the way to, yes, there is a physical attraction, let's say inborn, like I said, like the symmetry and stuff, but it's very limited, and much of it is cultural and learned and can be changed and changes over time. And in the end, the physical attraction wanes, and it's while important, and I do believe that it is important, because, and I can get into, we discuss some reasons why, but it shouldn't be the only thing. And I think these days way too much emphasis is placed on that, and people are trying to look more and more perfect. And I think too much emphasis is placed on looks and appearance, for sure. But again, I think the other problem is if you don't have that physical attraction and you try to find a partner and be with somebody based only on their other qualities, and again, if you're younger especially, and problems can emerge as well, serious ones, because you won't, without the sexual attraction, literally you won't be able to have that sexual connection, which is also extremely important in building that bond in the neurochemistry. Like when you have sex, when you have intimacy, when you have orgasms, these are very powerful. They have profound effects on your brain and your attachment and your bonding. And if that doesn't function well, a relationship that has become sexless, there's a very high chance it's highly dysfunctional and won't last. And you hear about like marriages, people don't have sex for months and then years, and it's insane. It happens a lot. It happens way more than you think. And people are staying together because they want to maintain the household, the kids, the this, the that, and they sleep in separate bedrooms, maybe, or they're basically roommates, and for all kinds of reasons, children, financial. We know that. I have friends, who are doing this. Well, that's a terrible way to live, and I don't think I don't think you want to get there. And if again, like we talked earlier, I met somebody who separated from their very nice spouse because the sexual attraction wasn't there, and the person tried, but it didn't work, and it's just like, I can't, I'm unhappy, and I can't orgasm. I'm not, and then
I'm gonna lift this dog up real quick.
Yeah, we're back.
Wrap this up. So the before we wrap this up here, I was gonna put out one more idea, one more thought experiment. Because you said people are social beings, we like social interactions, that gives us one of the greatest joys in life, sort of. And to me, it makes it almost sound like you have to have or be in a relationship in order to sort of experience this profound sort of happiness, or this profound sort of experience, like this where your brain chemistry, your circuits, and your whole life, like the relationship becomes more important than yourself, or the other person becomes more important than yourself. This like unconditional love and this whole thing. And these two, I will get back to that, how these two are related, but I think that you also have to be, or humans have to be able to live without a relationship, and you have to be happy and also have a profound sort of life experience. And I don't know if that's well, we know that there's more and more people that are single, I guess, or choose to be single, right? We just heard this earlier today. But I think it's a good mental exercise to practice the idea, at least, that, okay, if I'm alone, living in the jungle by myself, or on Mars or some other planet, where I don't even have to think about being together with somebody else, okay, how do I become happy in that stage? Okay, and some people might argue you have to be able to do this first in order to actually be in a profound relationship. So that you have to come in knowing that you don't need this in order to be happy. Like, this is not a requirement, a mandatory requirement to reach the highest level of human experience. Okay, one of my favorite words. Or of happiness, or whatever you want to call it. So I think this is very important, that you need to first be happy with yourself without any relationships, without any relationships, I think. I don't know if that's possible, I don't know, but with a minimal amount of relationships, to find sort of it goes back to this, who is the most important person in your life, right? And I think it's you yourself are the most important. It sounds egocentric, but it's not. It just means you first need to be in tune with yourself and know yourself, and be able to sort of look at yourself before you should look at sort of external relationships and relationships with others, because it also helps you. I think it helps in any relationship to be able to have this empathy, right? To put yourself in the other person's shoes. And I think a lot of people always sort of everything is like always like towards them. Okay, it's like how they interact with this and this and this and this and this and this, and I need this, and this is how I see it, and I me I. And it would help a lot in any relationship. I think also in a lot of business relationships, not just personal relationships, but we're talking about personal relationships here. That you just put yourself in the other person's shoes. At least try. Okay, we will never be able to fully experience this. Okay, but at least try for a couple minutes. Okay, what I'm gonna put myself into the other person's shoes and see how they how they experience this whole thing. Okay, we don't know for sure, but I think it's a good sort of a good exercise. Okay, but you can only do this, I think, if you first can look at yourself and realize, okay, for example, now I'm projecting. Okay, I'm angry. I'm raising my voice, not because this person did actually something wrong, but because somebody cut me off while I was driving home and this idiot was in front of me. Okay, but now this idiot is gone, but I'm still like angry. I don't, and then you come home and then you come in and you're like, like the smallest thing like is kicking it off, and you sort of like, you first need to. Does that make sense?
Well, I correct me if I think there's a couple of different concepts here that you're discussing. I mean, first, the one about should you be happy with yourself before entering a relationship, or do you need a relationship to be happy at all?
Mm-hmm.
I think again, there's variation. There different people have different tolerances for this, and in different points in life. Like when I was younger, I could say there were periods I was perfectly happy by myself. I mean, yes, it would have been nice to have a friend, but early on, when I was younger, like I was by myself for many years. I was completely fine, and relationships were not a priority. I was in school. I was busy with work. And for many people, like earlier in life, especially nowadays, they're postponing marriage, relationships, because there are many other things to keep them busy. Friends, their work, and sports, and other activities, and school, and all kinds of things that will keep people busy. And so, no, you don't need a relationship to be happy. But at some point, and I think with age, certainly, at least in my experience, it becomes more important. And when you're young, and especially in school, you're surrounded by people, and that also makes a huge difference. And frankly, when you're younger, like it's easier to meet people, right? Mm-hmm. Because people aren't married, they're single, so they mingle more. Well, not the same when you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s. It becomes much harder to meet people. And again, it depends on your circumstance and so on. But in general, it's not so easy. Many of my friends are still the ones I made in college and school and grad school and professional school, and so your social opportunities diminish with time, and so maybe because of that, and also like I need to start a family, and that impulse that we have, the ones that at least want to have families. And have that partnership, and by family I mean like a partner first, and maybe children are part of that picture, but becomes, I think, increases with age. At least that's been I certainly have much higher drive now to meet that one than I did when I was younger, and I would say I'm very late. And I've had it for a while. It's not like it emerged yesterday, but for me, I always thought, well, it will just happen when it happens, and it happened. I thought it happened, and it kind of didn't work, and so on. You don't need that, but I think ultimately the right partner can help you grow as a human being, because I think we talked about this earlier. A partner is a mirror. They will show you things that you cannot see by yourself. I mean, your friends may tell you things, your family, but an intimate partner that you spend every day with, and you're on an intimate basis, a deep relationship, and if it's a good one, but in any relationship, teaches you something about yourself that you cannot learn on your own. And even failed relationships, hopefully, they teach you something. And so if you can have a partner, a healthy relationship, you'll learn a lot more about yourself, and you'll also learn how to tolerate tolerate maybe is not the right word, but how to live with another human being, and kind of see the world through their eyes as well, which again moves you from the self-centered sort of view that when you're on your own, you see the world through your own eyes, your own needs. It's me. When you're with a partner, you have to compromise. You have to see things through their eyes, and to challenge your beliefs and your and that expands you. It should expand your mind. Now, again, that's assuming this is a healthy relationship and a healthy partner, and things are overall positive. And even if maybe they go through struggles and problems, by helping them get through those phases and and strengthening them and teaching them, and it's a symbiotic relationship, hopefully, that makes both people better and helps them grow and develop. And for sure, I've learned things about myself through my partnerships, and I not just that, but I learned from my partners. Everybody brings a different experience, and I think partners rub off on each other, like even in simple things, like what they like, hobbies even, like, and others from me, like I like photography, and I've had partners who pick that up and they like it now, and partners that like certain things because I spend time with them on that, I like that, and so yeah, it enriches your life. The right partner, they not only serve as a mirror to show you your goods and your bads, and hopefully teach you something so you can develop into a better person, but it also allows you to learn from them and do the same for them, and that's why I think it's a richer existence. It doesn't mean that you can't be happy on your own, and many people can be happy on their own, not just in younger life, but even in later lives. I'm content, I've been there, done that. I want to be at peace now, and I'm just doing my thing and I'm fine. So everybody's different, but I think if you can find the right partner, your life will be enriched. And I think I do believe we're social beings, and I think studies show, not to use that cliche term, that people who are in loving relationships even live longer and happier lives, and especially for men. So there's also been shown that there's a bit of a difference between the genders when it comes to that, especially with older age. Older single men don't do well. They just don't. I'm not sure I don't know the exact reasons. I can certainly see myself being in that group. Like I don't think I do well as a single old elderly guy. Women tend to do better when they're single, when they're older, because I think they're just more social. They have deeper relationships with other women, and they can just have their friends, and it's totally fine. Whereas men, they become isolated. They've maybe put all their let's say their spouses have become the center of their existence, and maybe they leave them or they die, and they don't have the same deep bonds with other men. That's why I think it's important for men to have deeper bonds with each other, and I think these days there's somewhat of a resurgence in that, because men are, especially in this society, they're expected to be very individualistic, strong, and not express their feelings. That causes them to then isolate themselves, and the woman becomes their only channel. Their male relationships are superficial, so if the woman leaves their lives, they don't have that support system that women have amongst themselves. And I see some encouraging signs among men that men circles, and it's a bit like, it's like, hey, I love you, man, let's go. And but it's good. I think it's good for men to also form strong bonds and be comfortable with themselves, with the stuff and emotional stuff, and mental health, and just be closer, not be these macho, robotic, cheesy, cartoonish guys. And I think in this society in particular, we might have to leave that for a different episode. There's a bit of a cartoonish element to men almost, and then to women. And I think I don't know which comes first. You could say, well, the women are like this, and that makes the men like that, or the men are like this, that makes they feed each other. But we become caricatures almost, and the society is a bit now having some problems, where I think the relationship between the sexes is really strained. It's becoming, it's been like that for a while. I think there's objectification on both sides, men objectify women, women might have some unrealistic demands of men, and it's losing its, let's say, humanity maybe. And certainly my exposure to the Brazilian culture has really, really emphasized that there's now a huge, in my view, a really big gap in And what I saw there as being a very warm and affectionate and genuine, more genuine connection between people and couples. And here it's just a shit show, sometimes, like it's just people are very superficial and transactional, and it's about me and what can you do for me, and oh, are we right on it? It's a bit, yeah. So we have to, I think, be careful not to go further down that line, because people are becoming isolated. I mean, I'm reading like even young people are just single and a lot more, and they're afraid to get in relationships. And yeah, you have the app culture. That's a whole different discussion now. It's just like super easy to swap people out, and I don't like, next and next and next. So there's no effort, less and less effort being put into truly trying to build a deep relationship. So yeah, but yeah, again, I think having being in a good relationship will make you happier for most people, and especially men as they get older. But it's not to say that you can't be happy on your own. And should you be happy on your own before entering a relationship? I think that's an often kind of discussed thing. And maybe ideally, sure. I think it's good not to be too over dependent on the person. Like if I'm miserable in every aspect of my life, and the only thing that keeps me happy is you, that could be a recipe for disaster, right? Because I'm putting way too much pressure on you. And if that fails, well, I will have nothing, and that won't be good, and then I'll go into despondency and despair if that relationship breaks. And not only that, but I'll be very anxious, right? Because you're the only good thing in my life, and it's gonna somehow transmit in that relationship. That other person is gonna feel the pressure, and it's gonna make them anxious, and it might make them want to leave because it's like too much. Like I don't want this needy person who has nothing else going for them but me. That nobody wants to be in that role, and you want to put yourself in that role to be like, I'm nothing without you, like, and I'm nothing without that. No, it's too much pressure on the other person, and it's not good for you. And so, yeah, I think it's good to have other things going on. Do you need to be totally ecstatically happy? No, I don't think that. But I do think you need to have a life, You can't just, your whole life should not just be about your partner. So while I think it's important to have a partner, a loving partner, and overall it will make for happier people, I do think that both people need to have their own lives and they enrich each other, because I want a partner, actually, I've always wanted a partner who has their own life, like a woman who's like independent, that's me. Like I don't want, that's again a whole different, I don't want like even like let's say a stay-at-home mom. Like I want them to excel in other areas of life, so they can have other things going for them, not just the relationship. Now if like, let's say I don't have children, but if they want to be a mom and that's like enough, then great. But I think like, for me, the partner that I would like to have would probably be one that has other areas of life developed, because I think it'll make them happier, and it's more interesting to me because I want them to do other things and grow as a person, and also want to learn other things from them. And it's healthy, to have kind of your own separate lives within the relationship, and then you can come together and say, look, I did this today, and look at this, and maybe in an area of life that I know nothing about. Like I've actually even want my partner to have a profession that I don't know anything about, that because it's, I don't want to, I want to learn something new, or I want to have, so that part I do agree. You don't have to be perfectly happy. I don't agree that you have to be totally happy. Like everything has to be perfect for me to want to know. But you do have to have other, like a life, and interest, hopefully a job, or something, like have, and not just be sitting there and waiting for somebody to fall out of the sky to make you happy, because that's probably not going to be good. And if it fails, it could be really bad. So yeah.
You might even argue if the person is too independent. But I mean, there's this being happy alone, which doesn't mean you're automatically independent. But I guess if you're too independent, like maybe the person's not invested as much in the relationship. Like if it goes apart, they're like, well, I can be happy by myself too. Like maybe they would work on it less because they maybe it's actually a bit good that you are unhappy when you're alone. So you put more effort into it to actually keep this thing going.
I mean, I see. I mean, if you have a lot of stuff going on in your life, your relationship takes less and less of that. So losing it won't matter. Well, you have a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
So sure, there's always the risk of that, but I think it's different. I think work is work. Your profession is your profession. I think you have to be able to separate that and say, well, my profession is this, and it makes profession or hobbies, whatever things make me be who I am and I'm interested in. And then my relationship is this over here, and it's important, equally important, or more important, but in a different way. So now it's interesting because this back to my Brazil experience, right? In Brazil, work, family is number one. It's the top. It's a very family-oriented culture, and as many Latin cultures are, and other cultures throughout the world, far more so than in America, where people are individuals, and it's an individualistic culture, and people are very career and work focused and achievement focused. And in Brazil, it's very different. Family comes first, maybe God, family, and work is a distant second. And I did struggle with that somewhat because I was very much busy and very, entrepreneurial things and career and profession. So, and this woman came and said, family, she would call herself a family girl, and then my daughter, and and it took me a bit to it was kind of disorienting at first. I mean, I want a family, but I was so busy and sort of preoccupied with my profession and financial stuff and achieving this and that I found it oh, come on, but I'm not going to give this. And I found myself, well, if I want to, it's well, this is a priority. If you want to come to Brazil and give up all that and the family, isn't that the most important thing? It was duh. And for me, it was well, yeah, but how am I going to pay the bills? And actually, I have these ambitions. I want to succeed. I want to launch my company. I want to be an executive over here or whatever, but yeah. And so I didn't quite buy that, but actually with time, I was starting to get into it more because I want that and say, okay, I'll leave the stuff behind, because this feels really good and it's a really warm culture. And it fell apart, and that's what actually caused so much more of the pain, because after it took me so long to kind of shift my frame of mind, the rug is pulled from under my feet, and and now I'm what the hell just happened? And actually towards the end, this person kind of changed tunes a bit and said, well, financial expectations and things started coming into play, and I was wait, so is it really the case that So again, there's some practical realities that, as much as we'd like to believe that love and families, we still live in this world and we still have practical needs and financial needs, and we have to work and we have to make a living and we have to provide for our loved ones. So how do we do that? And if that falls apart, you bet there's going to be stress and problems. So we don't live in a vacuum. And so I guess, I don't know what the point was here. I lost my train of thought, but there were some big differences in priorities, right? And in that culture, family was first and foremost, and work was secondary, or work is a means to an end. While here, work and individual achievement is much more important, and family is a distant second, which is causing a lot of problems. I think this has gone too far. I was very attracted to that, but at the same time, I wasn't willing to just walk away from my ambitions either, because, well, I don't know, I was I grew up. I grew up here, so I still have this. I think the ideal situation is not to have both. And again, everybody's different. Like some people don't care much about professional and career ambitions, but I think ideally, you know, you want to have a family that supports, or a partner that supports whatever ambitions and things you have. I think that's the right thing, and I supported hers. I didn't feel like she supported mine. Like so she was a wonderful person, but in the end, I felt like she was asking for a lot, you know, without really understanding the sacrifices and the compromises that I would need to make. Whereas she like actually started going to school and studying something even she was older as well, like my age, more or less, a little bit younger. But and I was super supportive, but I don't, you know. So I said, the chief do work more, and she's like, well, no, you. Anyway, it's a different conversation, but partners should support each other's ambitions as much as within reason, as long as it's not like well, again, like if it's, I was going to say disruptive to the partnership, but if a partner said, well, I want to go back and study this and go get my PhD, and I'm going to go to a different state, and that's, I need to do that. It's, you know, I've always, and that means, well, what about me? Like, what about us? Like, so do you say, well, I'm going to quit my work here. Like, you got into school over there, you know? So of course, yeah, you have to talk it out and see, ideally, the partnership, the family should come first, right? I mean, I kind of agree with the Brazilian view, but at the same time, you also need to support your ambition, you know, your personal development. The partners need to support each other's personal development and ambitions, and, you know, whatever that is, as much as possible. But there's compromise, you know, and sometimes you have to give something up. You just can't have your cake and eat it too. And you say, well, if I want to be with this person, if I want to have a family, sorry, I can't get my PhD in astrophysics anymore. Like, I can't go to medical school. I can't be a doctor because, you know, and then you have to ask yourself what's important. And I think ultimately, yeah, family is pretty important. I mean, I felt very good. I had a very beautiful experience in Brazil. Unfortunately, things broke, but for me, that was very rewarding, and it opened my eyes to, like, that there's a big gap here. And I think American culture is suffering from, it's drifted too far. And probably some of this cultural backlash that we're seeing comes from that, where some people just say, well, now I don't like these super liberal values, and the conservatives are striking back. I'm not going to get into politics here, but some of that comes from this. You know, I think, yeah, we need to kind of, yeah, maybe address, you know, fix the family, but like kind of get people to be a bit, you know, and I know it's not, you know, I know maybe that makes me sound traditional and conservative, but, and I know there's many other preferences out there and ways of living, and yeah, I'm sure I sound very conservative with this, but I that's, you know, again, I'm a heterosexual male, and I have, yeah, I would say pretty standard traditional desires in that sense. Yeah, we can talk about polyamory and all of that.
Yeah. We'll save this
for a different,
yes.
Yeah, all the other flavors that one can have in this world. All fine.
Yeah. Let's should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
All
right. Good stuff. Until next time, I hope everybody got something amazingly fascinating out of this. Leave your comments.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to your comments.
All right. Until next time, this is Dan, and that is Dom, and we'll continue our conversations in the next episode.
All right. Good stuff.
Ciao, ciao.